So from my side, absolutely fantastic having you here. I'm not going to say anything about the program before our Vice-Chancellor speaks, but just to say there's a couple of housekeeping stuff. The one is your name on the programs, the dinners in the evenings. So, yeah, let me ask our Vice-Chancellor to make a few opening remarks, and then we'll say something more about how the idea came about and how the program will be falling into place. Vice, are you? Yes, please. Okay.
Thanks, Andre. Andre and his chair of critical studies in higher education transformation has got a habit of throwing us to a deep end. And you can imagine that being thrown in a deep end as a rural girl who is still learning to swim, it's actually quite a scary thought. So thank you again, Andre, and your team. I would like to greet staff and students of our university. I would like to greet all the colleagues from other universities in South Africa. I would like to greet all the professors that are here. I would like to greet the visiting scholars and our collaborators from around the globe, in our continent and beyond. I've seen all of you. Sanibonani. In my language, when you say Sanibonani, means that hello, which means that literally, we see you. We see you, we acknowledge you. So that's what Sanibonani means. I see also that we have got current and previous vice-chancellors. I've seen Professor Mtose, I've seen Professor Rensbeck. I understand that Professor Bauer is coming, our CEO of Universities South Africa. I've seen Professor Chris Brink. I was saying to him, he's my hero. I love his book. It says everything that one would have liked to say, but it says it better. So congratulations for this work, Chris. I want to greet the research associates and honorary and visiting professors of our university. I've seen many of them, and I'm not going to call them all by names. I want to also greet our collaborators, particularly Dr. Dina Belluigi from Queen's University in Belfast, and your colleagues that are all here. They are a key partner in this project. I want to greet Professor Andre Keet, a hardworking chair of Nelson Mandela University Chair in Critical Studies in Higher Education Transformation. All protocol is observed, colleagues. I recognize all of you with a lot of respect this morning. 5 months ago, I stood in this building delivering the opening address for the colloquium, which we called Dalibunga, this time that Mandela. I started my address by acknowledging the relational nature of the colloquium and the collective and collaborative pursuit underlying it. This, of course, being the main feature of our scholarship at this university. Today, I welcome each and everyone to this winter school in a similar manner, for this is indeed a gathering of friends, of collaborators, colleagues, co-travelers, and critical interlocutors to make sense, if this is at all possible, of the university. Fittingly, this gathering, colleagues, takes place immediately after the university's Mandela Centenary celebrations, which ended last month at the end of July. The centenary celebrations created a space for us to reflect on a century of all things Mandela. We now enter the next phase, while we continue with our intention to pose the challenging questions about the place and significance of the university and the social significance of the academic enterprise in our time. This winter school represents a series of courageous efforts of reimagining the essence of the university. In my inaugural speech last year as a Vice-Chancellor last April, we made a commitment that Nelson Mandela University will seek to position its intellectual project in service to society. In doing so, I echoed Premesh Lalu's work of 2015, the question that Lalu asked, what is the university for? According to Lalu, when asking this question, we need to admit to two ways we hear the phrase for. On the one hand, we hear a question about what the university is supposed to be doing now. And on the other, we hear a question about the standpoint of the university. Elaborating this thinking further, Chris Brink, as I've referred to his work just now, who is here with us at this winter school, poses two more questions in relation to the contemporary university. The questions he poses: what are we good at and what are we good for? Point to two subtle yet paradigmatic differences which can guide us towards our understanding of what Brink has called the soul of the university. The answer to the first questions, what are we good at, points to the historic present position of the university, whilst the answer to the second question, what are we good for, paves the way for a reflection on the purpose of the university, its future. We need to acknowledge that the historic present of the university, the answer to the what are we good at question, is intrinsically entangled with the received understanding of the university as linked to knowledge and excellence. As I have argued before, it is, of course, essential that the university remains restless about issues of excellence and merit. But I have also argued that this is not sufficient on its own. In fact, there is a case for us to deconstruct for ourselves at this time the very meaning of these notions of excellence and merit. The future of the university, therefore, lies in the remaining three questions, which I am sure that the eminent speakers will reflect on in the next 2 days of this winter school. The first, what is the university for, as it relates to what the university is supposed to be doing now? The second relates to what the university's position and standpoint is. And thirdly, what are we as the university are good for, which relates to what we should be in service of. The collective answer to these questions will, I believe, begin to frame the university's posture as an enterprise committed to make its contribution to the improvement of the human condition. In our search for an active becoming towards the engaged university in service of society, as we have said here at Mandela, we can center our thinking on three premises which critical university studies scholars have advanced. I'm not advancing them myself. The university as plastic, the university as porous, the university as placed. By plastic, I do not refer to an imitation of the real thing. But here I mobilize Professor Keet's 2018 formulation of the plastic university. Imagined, and I quote from him, imagined as a self-transforming machine with infinite possibilities for doing just and doing right, close quote. Inscribed in the university is the potential for meaningful change, the emancipation of knowledge and transformative social justice work. Thinking plastic is therefore, my apologies. Thinking plastic is therefore thinking mutability, change, exchange, morphing, metamorphosis, transformation, according to Galloway. Reading the university as plastic is reading the potential for change. The second premise is that the university is porous. Julia Priest, in her 2017 work, argues for, and I quote, exploring how universities might position themselves as porous rather than ivory towers for community engagement. The porous university is not one where it is pitted against the community or somehow regarded as an abstract extraction thereof. It is not a detached site for critical inquiry, but rather the enactment of a relationship, and I quote from Press, whereby both university and community gain new understanding for change and interact fluidity as neighbors, close quote. To regard the university as porous is to work towards a university without boundaries. And I quote from Press again, a university without boundaries, which is metaphorically porous and neighborly to its surroundings and other organizations. The process of co-creating knowledge in these engagement relationships also means the university is intellectually porous in allowing knowledge to be socially defined, close quote. I personally confer great respect on knowledges that are not necessarily led by scientists, as we understand them. I believe the university lacks sufficient and appropriate proximity to deprivation. The university lacks proximity to stories of resilience. And that is why the university needs to work with other publics. The traditional university is, in my view, skeptical of the native intelligence, discernment, and survivalist tactics of those that are external to it. Tactics that, in social policy, we have referred to as the weapons of the weak. The university has for too long maintained a long social distance between the tested practices and wisdoms of resilient communities, and therefore the university, I have argued in the past, lacks the language and the lexicon as to how it can translate its scholarly work to serve society better. I now refer you to the third premise of the university as placed. At the historic name change launch event of our institution in July 2017, when we changed our name to Nelson Mandela University, our then Deputy President, Cyril Ramaphosa, provided a sober account of the responsibility weighing on the shoulders of our institution, named after the face of social justice, Nelson Mandela. And he said, I quote from him, he said, a university named after Mandela must remain rooted in answering the challenges that confront our society in a global economy. It must be an African university that serves the continent and her people, recognizing that it is situated in a society and on a continent that is ravaged by poverty, inequality, and unemployment. It means its curriculum will, in content and character, seek to answer the social and economic challenges that confront our country and continent, close quote. In this extract, the importance of the university as placed institution cannot be ignored. Nelson Mandela University, as any other university the world over, has to acknowledge this place where it is situated and ask itself what this place acknowledges about the university. It is only through reading universities as place-based that will propel us to re-articulate the university. The three questions advanced earlier, as I move to conclude, are intrinsically linked to the theme of this winter school, namely emancipatory imaginations, advancing critical university studies. I have an affinity for this subject myself because I think that universities in general have not yet found a social imagination that allows them to engage in equalizing ways. Such imagination of necessity must advance the social freedom to respond to the key social justice questions of our time. Welcome, Professor. These questions converge around the challenge of global and local inequalities without a radical reimagination of the very basis upon which we have to approach this task. We may inevitably reproduce its patterns. This winter school is therefore an expression of the duty of this university and the university in general. That is, an emancipatory imagination should have as its starting point a dexterity that can think into the university as society, to unshackle itself from its ingrained character of aloofness. I hope that through invoking these three questions and emphasizing these three premises, have stirred your interest into imagining and, importantly, reimagining how intellectually exciting and challenging, as well as socially pragmatic and politically productive, a critical university studies program can be. I hope you will enjoy your time at our university. I wish you an impactful winter school. I am looking forward to receiving a report as a guide on how, where, and through what pathways we can support practically and scholarly, and we can also live up to our ambition of, in the words of Nelson Mandela, acknowledging, reimagining, and revitalizing education as the most powerful weapon to change the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you to the Nelson Mandela University community, to the Vice-Chancellor for your address, which has really set the tone and the task ahead of us, to the CriSHET team, many of whom you see around us and who we'll get to interact with over the next week, particularly to Jeremy and Derenique, whose names we know well, and now it's great to put the face to the name, and of course to Andre. For hosting this event, for working together at some points while driving through strange roads on the island of Ireland, and for bringing together some incredible people. And really it is about you. Thank you for coming from far and near, and for signaling by your presence that you are open to thinking and renegotiating your and our perspectives, to talking about our frameworks and our practices. We felt it important to pause at this moment in time and in this place in the history of this country, which has explicitly grappled with the problematic firmament and functions of the universities in settler colonial spaces, and also with the active project of trying to transform and generate higher education. To link with you who have worked within this area in various capacities, positions, and affordances in different parts of the higher education sector, and who have wrangled actively with the questions that Andre and I articulated in the concept note. Of importance is that we use this opportunity to create conditions for discussion where those who have a long and substantial career of transforming higher education now turn to consider the legacy in their wake. And I'm humbled in my awareness of how many are in this room, in person, but also in intellectual and political spirit. And also to create the conditions for those of us of another generation and various positions and persuasions who are able then to appreciate, to hear, contribute, and hopefully make powerful networks and connections for studying the unknowable and not yet known future university. The various forms of this week's interactions, and Andre will chat more about that, the roundtables, the social meals, the umgablulo, the workshops, will hopefully not function as normal academic processes. With your critical generosity, we hope they will act as spaces of opening the way in which we think, study, regulate, shape, critique, interact, generate, or if not possible, witness the transformation of universities in our spaces. And also the ways in which that which is within our control, our work, may be more impactful for social justice. This is, of course, not the first step. It won't be the last. But with the urgency and responsibility that so many of us feel and bear, we hope that it will be meaningful.
But just to say that the idea, you know, there's like an unease within the sector globally, you know, as to whether we are responding to the key questions of our times in ways that matches its complexity, you know, in so many different kinds of ways. And so, and I was thinking about, especially, you know, when you sit in structures like the Higher Education Quality Council, the Council for Higher Education, you know, you feel a discursive frame steering thought, even if you disagree with that particular direction. Eh? You're almost like on a sea of waves of thoughts that have captured a particular form of social imagination and a field that inhibits thinking outside of those frames. No? And so those interpretive horizons are always cut off at a point. And now at the present moment, of course, you can clearly see that they sometimes even emptied out from any social justice content. No, you don't see the project of deep critical transformation within the way in which our policy and our other frames are playing themselves out, even if they were well-intentioned some time ago. And so that enslavement of our social imaginary around the question of the neoliberal revolution has more or less cut off other ways of thinking about the university. And because of that, we are entangled within the reproductive machinery of the university, no? Both in the question of its discriminatory and exclusionary outcomes, but also in relation to the kinds of practices that generates these kinds of outcomes as well. And so there is and I think we're probably at a very, very good historical moment to try and rethink. And especially in South Africa, where the neoliberal clutches is not as yet so strong as in the UK, for instance. You know, we have spaces still to think outside of these strictures. And I know I always say to people that when you speak to committed university executives, they actually do want these discussions on the margins to provide for a kind of middle that more or less can pull back, you know, away from how these waves are pushing them in certain kinds of directions as well. So university executives also require voices from the margins so that the justice within the middle ground can be better expressed as well. And it's for no reason that we have great support from executives in this African space as well. And you'll hear them when they speak and they come up. You've heard Prof. Muthwa and how she thinks about this. So, and of course we also have Sharon, and I need to acknowledge you as well, apart from the fact that we have some of our great collaborators, Shirley Michelinos and Karna Suming and Jason also around in the space, and Tony, Chatis, Nandita, Viv and so on, and Sue, and some of the other friends. And the reason for that is that within Sharon's work there seems to be frames emerging that can unshackle some of the ways in which we think the possibilities of the university. Okay, because it's more or less the state and the policy regime that has a monopoly on the distribution of possibilities. And it's our responsibility to break out of that distribution and to take some agency in distributing the possibilities in different spaces. And so, but the meaning of the critical in here, and I have to make this point now because the prefix of critical always conjures up so many things, you know. But in Dina and myself, in the way we think about it, is the opening up of categories that are closed, you know, to reveal its contradictions, antagonisms, and to reveal the crisis that it conceals, because that is normally what categories does. And the critical here is also associated with creativity. So it's very, very pragmatic. We're not talking about the armchair critic. that sits there and use Marxist analysis and, of course, write articles upon articles to critique the social order. The critical here is a creative critical that seeks innovative solutions whilst challenging our assumptions and receivable categories. And so the critical should produce critique by imagining the new, denying the given, and coping with the constraints of everyday life experiences. And so the critical is like the work of love, the work of justice, the work of actualization, where critique is generated with the idea of putting alternatives on the table, even if it's unpredictable. And the critical should not become its own dogma, okay? The dogma of the critical is not so different from the dogma of the right, okay? It's a dogma, okay? So it must, for itself, remain critical of itself, in a constant way. And it must acknowledge that it is unstable, it has an openness, it has an incompleteness, it is fragile, and that it's trying to catch up with the right moment, like the critical here is trying to catch up with the right moment of trying to figure out where the university system is going. And we're trying to catch up with that moment, both with resistance and creativity, and also with forms of unveiling the kind of practices that are possible. And so it is meant to dislodge our standard ways of seeing universities and question our imaginaries, and you can see in the space of engagement how many of the great thinking is already coming to the fore, because these same imaginaries are embedded in the policy, epistemological and ontological frames within which you operate, and there I'm using Sharon's phrasing. And so if we then talk about critical university studies, we're trying to put forward a different way of studying the university. We have higher education studies, we have studies in higher education, we have critical higher education studies, and they have different forms, and they influence the way in which we think the university in different kinds of ways. And this is not to put forward a battle with other paradigms, but it's to bring it in conversation with one another, to explore a flexible configuration that is capable of thinking plural forms of emancipatory higher education imaginations and futures. So do enjoy yourself at our university and at this winter school. So I'm going to ask Luan to come and do just a short mapping of critical university studies as it is playing out at present within the global space. Luan? Give Luan a hand, please, man. He's a bit nervous.
Thank you, Prof. Not so much nervous as this is one of my KPAs. So today, I stand here for my job, for my future. So speaking about critical university studies, being critical and being employed, contract work in this university, so take note, Prof. Professor Muthwa, thank you so much for your welcome address, and it was insightful. And all the other VCs and university management and lecturers and staff, honorary professors, visiting professors. It's always fun to say, all protocol observed. So I'm just going to provide a brief overview of critical university studies as a discipline and map where it came from, where it's going, and the tensions that we find as it is today. So critical university studies at a glance is a capital letter common noun field, because it deals both with the particular, this or the university, and the universal, the university, a university in particular, in general. So it aims at engaging with the past, the present, and the futures of the concept and the institution and the memory of what is university. And as a position, it takes an activist position and uses theories and methodologies from economics and cultural studies, literary studies, higher education studies. So it is by definition interdisciplinary. It was coined in 2012 by Jeffrey Williams in an article, Deconstructing the Academe, and he said that critical university studies is a new wave of criticism that emerged in the 1990s, essentially, against the backdrop of a changing global order. the global order that he was speaking of is, of course, the advent of neoliberalism and increased globalization in the wake of the end of the Cold War. However, there's a different definition. And Heather Seven argues that essentially critical university studies goes back to the 1920s and 1930s, when the first criticisms against the concept of the university as we understand today came to the fore. And she said then, essentially, Paulo Freire, for example, and Adrian Rich, their thinking is part of critical university studies, even though it's not acknowledged as such. Now, after Jeffrey Williams' writing, we've seen this plethora of different studies and texts, and one of the cornerstones has been the Palgrave-Macmillan series on critical university studies. At this point in time, there are 14 texts. That is their own definition and their circumscription about what critical university studies is and what the series aims to do. And at this point in time, there are 14 texts. That's just the selection, so reclaiming the university and for the public good, resisting neoliberalism, questioning the assessment of research impact, etc., etc. There's another series in the Johns Hopkins University Press, also critical university studies, and also have a very similar circumscription of what critical university studies is, where it comes from, and what it tries to achieve. At the moment, there's only 4 texts in this series: The Future of Academic Freedom, A Fractured Profession and Linked to Commercialism and Conflict, The Great Mistake, and The Branding of the American Mind. The last book series, the Bergon CUS series, and at the moment there's 3 texts, Learning Under Neoliberalism, Creating a New Public University, and Death of the Public University. So we can see there is a similar trend in texts and subject matter in these texts. There's been 1 or 2 specific special editions of Workplace, the Journal of Academic Labour, and Workplace, the Journal for Academic Labour, was the first to have a special edition on critical university studies, published in 2014. And there they engage with what is CUS specifically in relation to academic employment and the academic workspace, as it were. And they follow that up with Radical Teacher, which is another journal, who has a more pedagogical thinking and reflection upon the relationship between CUS and teacher-student relationships. So renewed pedagogics within the framework of CUS. And then there's a number of research networks, as it were. The first, I think, Dina, you are part of that. That's the Cambridge network. And they had their first meeting last year. The Cambridge Centre for Research in Art, Social Science and Humanities. And they also kind of set up a manifesto. What is CUS and what are we trying to achieve with this program? They're really relatively long manifesto, arguably. Roskilde University, they also have a research hub. It's a Danish university, and they have an interdisciplinary hub, and they've been working on different questions of critical university studies. However, what's interesting to see in these different networks and these different texts is firstly the subject matter that speaks to each other. However, the approaches are rather varied. So there is not really a harmonious language or vocabulary of CUS. So we have a harmonious understanding of what we want to study, what we want to interpret, what we want to engage with. However, what we speak, our tools, our conceptual framing, is not as harmonious as I think it ought to be or could be. And then we have the City University of New York, who instigated the Critical University Studies research track, and they opened it up for call for papers and call for researchers at the end of last year, and they have their first cohort at the end of this year, 2019-2020. From these various books and articles and studies and framings in the manifestos, as it were, there are essentially 7 themes we can deduce. The most prominent theme is privatization. So the critique linking it to neoliberalism and the global market economy, and how the university has been subjected to that. And also, as Prof. Keet has mentioned to us, how are we being cooperative in that regard? How are we playing into some of those discourses and furthering those discourses? The second is labor and the university. As I said, very importantly, I want a job, and I want a good job one day. And unfortunately, we see the rise of contracts. We see the decline of tenured professorships. We see a different relationship between staff and the academy and the academic project, as it were. The third theme is pedagogy in the university. There, much of the writing stems from higher education studies and critical higher education studies. However, there have been new thinking, specifically in the Radical Teacher Journal. They did a lot of new thinking about the relationship between student and staff and co-creating of knowledge, as Professor Muthwa also mentioned to us. The fourth theme is funding in the university, also intrinsically linked to privatization, of course. And as you see, all of these themes are essentially linked to a changing global order. We can study one of them on their own, but we have to acknowledge that they are interlinked. As a fifth theme, globalization. That is essentially the bigger overarching theme under which all of these other issues and questions are raised and uttered. Innovation in the university, and this is the new change in thinking. After this globalization, neoliberalization, the impetus is becoming entrepreneurial, becoming self-governing and self-just, the university that innovates and creates, obviously in sustainable development and all of these other nice terms and nice words which tend out to be quite hollow if you look at them more critically. And lastly, all of these questions ultimately end in the final question of what is the university for? As Professor Brink has asked, as Professor Lalu have asked, Professor Muthwa reminded us today, what is the university for? What is it good for and what is it good at? And these questions permeate all of these other themes. However, we don't often find this question addressed exactly in its entirety. So it permeates, it's radiant and it's under the skin of these discourses, but we don't really truly get to this question. So here I want to return to Heather Stephan, who says there is a disconnect here, essentially, between CUS as envisaged by Jeffrey Williams et al. And how Heather Stephan argues it as a different tradition. And she goes back to Paulo Freire, she goes back to Arjen Rich. And the Remaking the University, which is a blog online, they have a fantastic question they asked in 2 blogs. What does the Renaissance literature have to do with critical university studies? And should universities study slavery? And for those 2 questions, the relation of a historic consciousness from the Renaissance and the historic materiality of slavery, a link has been drawn to a deeper ethical question of what the university is and its historical foundations. Where have we come from? I think about this building, and I think about Bertrand campus, and I can just think this campus was essentially hijacked by the Broederbond from Rhodes University because Rhodes was too liberal. Ons mag nie, these English people, we may not have them, they're influence, they're too liberal. So the campus was hijacked. So essentially, what is the basis, what is the foundations upon which we base our thinking and our work and our scholarship? Have we thought of the very contextualized situations we work in and work from and work towards? And then interestingly, the Weinberg College of Arts and Sciences does not have a program in critical university studies as such. However, they have a site on their a page where they have references for critical theory, different types of critical theory, critical management studies, critical legal studies, critical scholarship studies, critical everything. And on that site, they have a list of readings, potential readings for critical university studies. And what's interesting is none of those texts come from the Palgrave series. They don't come from the Bagon series. They don't come from the John Hopkins series. They're not from the Workplace Journal, not from the Radical Teacher Journal. So they refer to these other texts which have not been disciplined, essentially, in the discourse of what we understand to be critical university studies. Because they ask these questions that the Remaking the University blog tells us to ask, essentially. And this is where I say that what we have experienced in critical university studies is a capitalization. By capitalization, both it's becoming a proper noun, the CUS, Critical University Studies, but that capitalization is based within a certain understanding of the capital of CUS, and that capital is the Western European conception that we have today. But if we look at critical university studies, it is essentially an imagined archive, because what the CUS scholars do, They go back to studies of the 20s or the 90s or the early 2000s. They say, retrospectively, we can argue this to be CUS, even though that specific scholar would say this is HES or critical education studies or pedagogics or whatever the case may be. So I've termed in another article I wrote the term archief. Now, archief is archive in Afrikaans, but also chliving is to write. So it's the imagined writing of an archive. So if we understand the Western conception of CUS as being a written archive, why can't we rewrite that archive ourselves, essentially? So we have that verwerlding, we have this worlding process of making capital in this text, in this series, and this is what CUS is. That leads to world things. Now the text can be appropriated, it moves as capital, etc. The argument is we can recapitalize, we can reinscribe, rewrite these archives to say this is the new critical university studies, this is an African critical university studies, or a global southern critical university studies, or just reclaim the title unto itself. So at the end we have these vying ontologies, as it were, from these different universities' ideas. We have the entrepreneurial university, the post-colonial, the public, the research, the international, women-centered, ethnic, plastic, neoliberal, engaged, toxic, porous, decolonial, for-profit, global, national, anything and everything for everyone. However, these vying ontologies question we have to deal with today. What is the ontology we are arguing for? Where are we arguing towards? What are we arguing for? Not only what are we arguing at the position we are at now, but where are we arguing in the future? Therefore, critical university studies is not only a descriptive study, it is a normative, it is a proscriptive, it's a call to action. It's a call to reimagine, and that's why this theme of this winter school, I think, is. So, with that in mind, Amandla Critical University Studies.
The mapping that the team has done, and thank you for the entire team, of course, it's been very useful. And part of the gaps identified in those themes is the question that critical university studies understood in the North has a particular nostalgia for a university that existed in the past that was perfect. And of course, us here in the global South, we don't work on that particular assumption. That university must appear from the future, okay? And because it will be very, very unproductive for us to think of that there was once a good university, okay, that can respond to the questions of our time. And we are thinking that maybe the main departure point from African critical university studies would be precisely that particular deviation from critical university studies conventionally understood. So Luan, thank you so much for that once again. We can do the performance appraisal, over tea. Right, and then I have seen also some of our other colleagues. Is Prof. Edith here? Oh, there you are. Welcome, Khadija. Great stuff, eh? So looking forward to your, and Natani? Oh, there you are. Lovely, thanks for joining us. We're looking forward to listening to the launch of your great book later this evening. Thanks so much, and thanks for joining us. Okay. Did I now acknowledge everybody who came? Yeah. Okay, I think I've got it now. Melathisi. Are you not on now? You're almost on now. Are you not supposed to explain Umkhabulu and then manage the introductions for us? Okay.
Good morning, everyone. I'm supposed to explain Umkhabulu. First, I would have to say again, Molweni. Umkhabulu is a Xhosa word. Xhosa is the dominant language in the province. So Umkhabulu would mean to sip. So the concept of Umkhabulu relates to sipping because back in the day, we would have the tradition where people would sit down and have pass around and sip while conversing about what was happening around, talking about social issues, trying to find solutions. So what was key in that conversation was that you must be comprehensive while you are sharing, and at the same time be conscious of time, because there's plenty of people that need to share and partake in the conversation. So now, under oppression, the concept sort of morphed to mean sharpening of political consciousness of the youth. So they would say that siyakukhabulisa chief when they are introducing you into politics. Now, as CriSHET, we have inherited the concept and refashioned it to mean equal and comprehensive sharing in knowledge. We are hoping that it will help us, it will guide us in this critical engagement in this winter school. So that would be that. Because I'm supposed to do introduction, I didn't introduce myself. My name is Melathisi, Ncityana, and my hope for this winter school is that it will help us, it will help the African University to reimagine itself and also position itself within Africa through inheriting our heritages, at the same time critically engaging them at the same time, not blindly inheriting them. That's my hope for the winter school. Let's start with you, Prof, and say, what are your hopes for the winter school? Prof, umama wethu hopes ukukhabula from all of us.
Just name where you're from and what explanation?
We'll keep it short. We'll say. We'll need your name, where the institution you represent, and what are your hopes for the winter school?
I'm Tony Gallagher from Queen's University Belfast, and I really just want to learn more things.
Prof? Thank you. Prof?
I'm Encarnación Gutiérrez Rodriguez from the University of Gießen in Germany, and I hope to strengthen ourselves in the struggle for transformation.
Thank you. We will keep it in that order.
Okay. My name is Satish Kumar. I'm from Queen's University in Belfast.
Thank you.
Before coming here, I remember bumping into Andre briefly, but one of my responsibilities is to observe and learn about this critical university concept, primarily because I've been asked from the government of India to provide some perspectives on the new educational policies as to what we are going to do for the future in the Global South.
Thank you.
I'm Suminku. I'm from the National University of Ireland in Galway, and I'm here to enjoy your company and to hope to learn, share, and laugh with you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Winnie Mitula from Kenya, University of Nairobi. I'm here to see whether this is just another concept.
Hi, my name is Ahmed Bawa. I'm from the University of South Africa, which is the kind of umbrella structure of the 26 public universities. And I'm just trying to understand what the bloody hell the university is like. So,
how do I top those two? My name's Jason Arde. I feel very fortunate to be here amongst brothers and sisters, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what the next couple of days have to offer.
My name is Dina Belluigi. I'm from Queen's University, Belfast, and my hope is to learn and connect.
Hello, my name is Chris Brink. I'm not currently with any university. I'm a retired gentleman of leisure. And I hope to capture lots of ideas for another book I'm working on.
Good morning, my name is Tsebo Madlingozi from the Center for Applied Legal Studies at WITS, and also a research associate at CriSHET. I'm happy to be here. I'm hoping to learn from all of you. I'm particularly interested in understanding what is beyond decoloniality, given the fact that the decolonial discourse has exhausted itself. So what's next? Thank you.
Yes. Exhausted. It has? It has, yes. Wow. Okay. All right, Sefo. I am from UNISA and the Medical Research Council. My name is Kopano. And I was just looking around whether there's anybody else from UNISA, because you'll have read the crisis we're just confronting. So this is a really amazing moment just to hear what people think about the university, because Mandla Makanya there has to do some serious thinking about the future of the University of South Africa. And one last thing, I really love the critical is love, the critical is justice. That's what's wonderful there. It's a quotable Twitter moment there.
I'm Xolisa Mthose. I come from the University of Zululand, South Africa. Why am I here? I'm here for my own selfish reasons. And I felt that this is a space that can assist me in dealing with the conflict that is within me currently and what is happening in higher education, particularly in the area of the historically disadvantaged institutions in South Africa, which I represent. And I'm here because I'm thirsty to understand how we're thinking and imagining universities that will be defined and redefined by us rather than being renamed by people who don't know who we are. So I'm here to find myself and say, what are these universities for? What's the content of these universities? And I think this is a space that will allow me to have that and think and rethink about the future of these universities. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. The name is Luzu Kopuku. I'm from CriSHET as a professional associate. I am here hoping to sharpen my activism in the higher education space, but also I'm hoping that I will learn something here that will assist me to angle better my PhD work and finally get it off the ground. So I'm hoping to get some ideas that will assist me in such things.
Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Christy van der Westhuizen. I'm with the Center for the Advancement of Non-Racialism and Democracy here at the Nelson Mandela University. I'm here primarily because I always enjoy everything that Andre does, I have to say, and his thinking. So I'm really looking forward to engaging with all of you to try and make sense of the difficult place that's called the university, and to see if change towards justice is actually possible, and if and how we're going to do it.
Thanks. My name is Michael Cross. I'm from the Al Mazrui Center for Higher Education Studies at the University of Johannesburg. Now, what brought me here? I think I hope I'll gain new insights on to meet this challenge of how to reimagine the university in Africa. I'm actually saying the university in Africa because the outcome could be the African university.
Hi, Sipho Dlamini from the Institute of Social and Health Sciences at UNISA SAMRC. I'm just really here to learn, and I've just learned decoloniality is dead. And I'm sad.
I'm Nancy Mokel. I'm from Nelson Mandela University. I teach English here. And I'm just interested in figuring out what critical university studies is and how it can help me be a better teacher and student, I suppose.
Hi, I'm Jenny from CriSHET, and mostly I just hope this winter school's going to go well. No, but to be serious, I'm hoping this will help me start thinking through my work on literary studies and critical university studies and how they might speak to each other.
Hi everyone, my name is Edith Paswan. I'm from the Thabo Mbeki African Leadership Institute at UNISA, and I'm one of those privileged ones to be here for the book launch. But I think CUS, Critical University Studies, is a catchy phrase, and I'm really privileged to be here. I hope maybe by the end of this winter school I will be understanding whether we really need a university or a pluriversity.
Thank you. My name is Michael Ocherefo. Ocherefo means teacher.
I'm from the University of Ghana and an associate of CriSHET. So I'm here because of my interest in the content, what African universities teach African students. Thank you very much.
My name is Nobubele. My surname is Puza. I am from Nelson Mandela University at the Chair for Critical Studies in Higher Education Transformation. That is my boss. And I suppose the key question that's lingering in my mind during this particular winter school is trying to make sense of how universities or the idea of university becomes so enslaved and what function does that play. So I'm hoping to answer that question for myself throughout the winter school.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Asipe. My surname is Mkalisa. I'm also from Nelson Mandela University, and I'm also a newbie at CriSHET. I'm here because I'm at work, and secondly, I'm here because as a person who's trying to enter into academia, I'm also here to sip from all the contributions that everyone will be making, and hopefully also contribute from the side of gender and from the side of politics, and how the university can also be seen as visible in the communities.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Aphiwe Bizani. I'm a student here at the Nelson Mandela University, and I'm also a student research assistant at CriSHET. I think I'm the infant in this room, scholarly speaking. Therefore, I'm here to draw from the wealth of experiences of everyone. I don't think I have much to contribute, but hopefully I will.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Pedro. My surname is Mzileni, and I'm a student in Nelson Mandela University. My research is on the fact that we tend to forget that a university is located in a particular street, in a particular city. So my research is on the relationship of this property called the university and its relationship with the city, the economy, and the community of the city. So I am looking forward to engaging with all of you colleagues. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Pass it from the back so we can start at the back until the front.
Good morning. My name is Aaron Rensberg, and I'm an honorary professor here in CriSHET. And for me, this is the very complex and ongoing journey of clarifying, distilling, making sense, and learning. So that's my expectation for the next couple of days. Thanks very much.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Khatija Khoza Shangase. I'm one of the co-editors of the book that's being launched this evening. I wasn't coming to this winter school, but when the opportunity was presented to me, I looked at the program and I thought I have to be in this space, even if it is just for 2 days. Purely because I grapple with the idea or the feeling of not belonging, and the realization that the university was not made for me, for a person like me. And so I'm constantly looking for reasons to run, flight. And if opportunities like these open up, I love to be in those spaces because they remind me that actually I do belong.
Thank you. My name is Aslam Fattar. I'm from Stellenbosch University, and I'm so animated by the opening and closing words of that very dynamic young gentleman. He started with KPAs, and he ended with Amandla. For me, that's challenging because I'm looking for a language that brings those two in conversation with each other. And I'm also trying to figure out whether this is the right place. I think it is. It feels like the right place. Thank you.
Good morning, colleagues. My name is Tlale Natane from Wits University Social Work Department.
I'm just so happy to be in this space because I think this path of critical university studies and decolonization, decoloniality, it's a path that I've recently embarked on, and I really look forward to ways of connecting and learning more from everyone in this space. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Nandita Dhawan. I'm from Jadavpur University in India. And I thank Andre and Dina for giving me the opportunity to be here. I already feel quite comfortable with the opening session. And coming from the space of the margins as women's studies academic, it's good to feel comfortable and happy right at the beginning of a conference. Thank you so much.
Hi everybody, Sue McKenna, Rhodes University. Just looking forward to meeting new people and hearing new ideas.
Hi everyone, I'm Vivian Bozulek from the University of the Western Cape, and I'm very intrigued with critical university studies and hearing more about that.
Michalinos Zembilas from the Open University of Cyprus. I'm not retired yet, but I hope by the time I will retire, this network will make its stigma in different ways.
Good morning. My name is Lebogang Ashatsi. I'm from Mandela University, and I'm here to just observe and learn. I'm tied up, like many people who find themselves in the administration side of the university. I think that's to the margins. And quite often we don't have the opportunity to attend sessions such as this, and I think I feel privileged. Thanks.
Good morning. I'm Sharon Stein from the University of British Columbia. I'm from the US, and I went to Canada to find a different conversation, so I'm very excited to have gone now halfway across the world to have an even more enriching and disorienting, I hope, conversation about these things.
Good morning, my name is Beata Mkingizana Buhlungu. I'm at the Nelson Mandela University. I've journeyed and worked at the University of, I've got to remember, Wits University, University of Johannesburg, Rhodes University, University of the Free State, and I must have left out, University of Cape Town. And I've realized that one is in search of solutions for strengthening our universities and for growing universities that are strong enough to be responsive to the challenges of society, the continent and the world, and I'm hoping to find some solutions.
Morning, colleagues. Sounds like I'm the odd one out. I'm from government. Department of Higher Education and Training. Mahlubi Mabizela, you would know me as chief as well. And I think all the reasons that the colleagues have already said, apply to me, but on top of it, just to be outside the office. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Chief, you're not the odd one. I'm coming from a non-governmental organization, which is the Higher Education Resource Service South Africa, which is known as HES SA. I'm a director there. The NGO is responsible for development of women leaders in higher education. Why I am here, I think also I've been an academic for quite some time. I have passion of higher education, that's the reason I'm working where I'm working. But I have a passion on ensuring that there are more women in leadership. And I think this critical discourse or critical discussion on how do we ensure that the environment is welcoming. There are, I think, Khadija, you've articulated it so nicely, the politics of position, inclusiveness and exclusiveness, who is welcome and who is not welcome in higher education. And I think it's a conversation that we critically need to look into. It was quite interesting when I saw that there's also universities that are women-centered universities. So I'm not sure if that's the direction we need to take as South Africa. But with that said, thank you.
Morning, colleagues. My name is Kwezi Mzilikazi. I am from Nelson Mandela University.
The first time I heard about this concept of a critical university studies was when I read Andre's research project that we're submitting for funding. And that was sometime this year. I was very interested and excited by the concept, so I'm here to learn more and also to remind myself why I work for a university.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Heather Null, and I'm at Mandela University, and I'm the university planner. And planners are often at the interface of multiple paradoxes, and some of which were elucidated by Luan, starting with his whole rhetoric around performance management and then ending with a mapping of critical university studies. So it's always interesting to engage critically with what universities are confronted with, what their purpose is, what their role is in society. So I'm really looking forward to being empowered to think critically about these issues. So thanks, Andre, for the invitation.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Shivani Pillai. I'm from the Nelson Mandela University, and I'm here to enjoy this imaginative but critical space as we engage on what the university is about and how we can reimagine it.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Claire Kelly. I am currently the person tasked with leading the transformation office at Stellenbosch University. And so I'm really here to try and figure out what I'm supposed to be doing. I really do think transformation functions across universities have a very important role. I think that role is under-theorized, undervalued, under everything. And I think part of why I'm here to listen and to learn and to kind of really think into what that role looks like in relation to all the other roles within the university and the broader role of the university. So yeah, I'm in deep inquiry, as it were. So thank you. I look forward to thinking together with everyone. Thanks.
Well, thank you all for sharing. Yes, we have all shared. Thank you all for sharing. It is hoped that through Kukhablisana we'll be able to find solutions, to find ways, to find frames of thinking, of critical thinking, not just thinking, critical thinking. Thank you all. Prof, are we going to Tina? Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Melathisi. Give Melathisi a hand, man, please, man. This is so great because we're making up that time that we lost earlier today. So what I'm going to check with you, if we take the half-an-hour tea break now, then we can shift then into the first roundtable after tea. Is that great? Right, lovely. So please reconvene here at 11 o'clock. Thank you so much.